Alex Murphy sat by his bedroom window and looked up at the stars. The 12-year-old boy lived in New Chicago with his parents. His mother, Dr. Lisa Murphy, studied alien life forms. His father, Captain Jake Murphy, used to work for the Earth Defense Force before he retired. Alex was different from other kids his age. While they played video games or watched movies, he liked to find patterns in things. He could look at clouds and see shapes that others missed. He could solve puzzles that made adults scratch their heads. His teachers said he had a special gift. But Alex just thought he saw things the way they really were. The year was 2387, and Earth had been part of something called the Galactic Council for 50 years. This meant that humans could talk to alien races from other planets. But most aliens thought humans were not very smart. They saw Earth as a small, unimportant world on the edge of the galaxy. That morning, Alex's mother got a very urgent message on her communication device. Her face turned pale as she read it. She called out to her husband, who was making breakfast in the kitchen. "Jake, you need to see this," Lisa said. Her voice was shaky. Captain Murphy walked over and read the message over his wife's shoulder. His eyes grew wide. "This is bad," he said quietly. The message was from Ambassador Helen Carter, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. It said that something terrible was happening across the galaxy. The Nexus Gate network was breaking down. The Nexus gates were special doorways that let spaceships travel instantly between star systems. Without them, it would take hundreds of years to travel from one world to another. The gates connected all the civilized planets in the galaxy. They made trade, communication, and travel possible. But now the gates were failing one by one. Entire star systems were becoming cut off from the rest of the galaxy. No one knew why this was happening, and no one knew how to fix it. Alex listened from the doorway as his parents talked about the crisis. He heard them mention something about an ancient puzzle that was causing all the problems. The smartest beings in the galaxy had been trying to solve it for 3 months, but they all failed. The Council is asking for help from every member world. Lisa explained to her husband, "Even Earth." Jake laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "Earth? They barely listen to us during normal times. They must be really desperate." Later that day, Ambassador Carter called Lisa directly. Alex could hear the conversation from his room because his mother was speaking loudly. "Dr. Murphy, I need you to come with me to Nexus Prime," the ambassador said. "You're one of our best xenobiology experts. Maybe you can help find a solution." "But, Helen, I study alien life forms, not ancient technology," Lisa replied. "I know, but we need our best people there. The situation is getting worse every day. More gates are failing. Some worlds are already running out of food and medicine because supply ships can't reach them." Alex's mother agreed to go. The next few days were very busy as she prepared for the trip. Alex watched his parents pack bags and gather important documents. He wished he could go with them and see the alien worlds he had read about in books. The day before his mother was supposed to leave, something unexpected happened. Ambassador Carter called again, and this time she sounded even more worried. "Lisa, there's been a change," she said. "The Council wants all delegation members to bring their families. They think this crisis might last a long time, and they don't want people to be separated from their loved ones." Alex couldn't believe it. He was going to space. He was going to see alien worlds and meet alien beings. His father looked worried, but his mother seemed excited about the possibility of Alex experiencing other cultures. "Are you sure it's safe?" Jake asked. "As safe as anywhere else right now," Ambassador Carter replied. "The Council's capital world has the best protection in the galaxy. And honestly, with the gate network failing, Earth might not be safe much longer either." That night, Alex could barely sleep. He kept thinking about what it would be like to travel through space and see other worlds. He wondered what the aliens would look like and if they would be friendly to humans. His mother came into his room to check on him. "Are you scared, Alex?" she asked. "No, Mom. I'm excited," he replied. "Maybe I can help somehow." Lisa smiled and ruffled his hair. "You're just a kid, sweetheart. This is a problem for the smartest scientists and engineers in the galaxy. But it will be good for you to see how big the universe really is." Alex nodded, but deep inside, he felt like this trip was going to be more important than anyone realized. He had learned to trust his feelings about patterns and puzzles. Something told him that this journey would change everything. The next morning, the Murphy family boarded a transport ship called the New Frontier. It was Alex's first time on a spaceship, and everything amazed him. The walls hummed with energy, and through the windows, he could see Earth getting smaller and smaller as they flew away. Other passengers on the ship included Dr. Kevin Ross, a quantum physicist, Dr. Susan Bell, a mathematician, and Dr. Paul Grant, a computer scientist. They all looked very serious and spent most of their time reading reports about the crisis. Alex sat quietly and listened to their conversations. They used big words that he didn't understand, but he could tell they were all very worried. They kept talking about quantum matrices and dimensional calculations and probability cascades. As the ship traveled through the dark space between stars, Alex pressed his face against the window and watched the stars go by. Somewhere out there was a puzzle that the smartest beings in the galaxy couldn't solve. Alex wondered what it looked like and why it was so difficult. He had always been good at solving puzzles, but this one sounded different from anything he had ever seen. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that he would play an important role in what was about to happen. The journey to Nexus Prime would take several days. Alex spent his time reading about the different alien races they would meet and learning about the history of the Galactic Council. He was particularly interested in stories about the Builders, the mysterious race that had created the Nexus Gate network long ago, that no one knew what had happened to the Builders. They had simply vanished, leaving behind only their incredible technology. Alex wondered if the puzzle that was causing all the problems had something to do with them. As the New Frontier got closer to its destination, Alex felt more and more certain that this trip would change his life forever. He just didn't know how much it would change the entire galaxy as well. When the New Frontier reached Nexus Prime, Alex pressed his face against the window and gasped. The planet was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Huge crystal towers stretched up into the purple sky. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like schools of fish. And everywhere he looked, he could see different types of alien beings. The spaceport was massive, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from hundreds of different worlds landed and took off constantly. But today, Alex noticed something wrong. Many of the landing pads were empty. The normal busy traffic was much lighter than it should be. "Look at all those empty docking bays," his father said quietly. "Ships can't travel here anymore because the gates are failing." Ambassador Carter met them at the spaceport. She looked tired and worried. Her usually neat hair was messy, and she had dark circles under her eyes. "Thank you all for coming," she said to the small group of humans. "The situation is worse than we thought. 3 more gate clusters failed just this morning. We're losing entire sectors of the galaxy." She led them through the spaceport to a special transport vehicle. As they traveled through the city, Alex saw aliens he had only read about in books. There were tall, thin beings that looked like they were made of crystal. These were the Zephyrians, and they were supposed to be the best mathematicians in the galaxy. He also saw groups of smaller aliens that moved together like they shared one mind. His mother whispered that these were called the Collective. They could think faster than any computer because they all worked together as one giant brain. Most amazing of all were the luminari. They looked like floating balls of bright light that changed colors as they moved. Alex learned that they existed in higher dimensions and could see things that other beings couldn't even imagine. If all these smart aliens can't solve the puzzle, how can humans help? Alex asked his mother quietly. I don't know, sweetheart, Lisa replied. But sometimes a fresh perspective can make all the difference. Their transport stopped at the Central Computing Complex, an enormous building in the center of the city. It was so tall that Alex couldn't see the top of it. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps of the galaxy. Many sections of the map were flashing red, which meant those areas had lost their gate connections. Inside the building, Ambassador Carter led them to a huge room filled with the strangest sight Alex had ever seen. Thousands of alien scientists and researchers were gathered around a massive holographic display in the center of the room. The display showed something that hurt Alex's eyes to look at directly. It was a three-dimensional puzzle made of light and energy. The puzzle had thousands of small points connected by glowing lines. The points pulsed with different colors, and the whole thing seemed to shift and change as Alex watched it. Sometimes it looked like a ball, sometimes like a cube, and sometimes like shapes that didn't have names. Elder Zixthara, one of the crystal-like Zephyrians, floated over to greet the human delegation. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. Welcome, beings of Earth, she said. We hope your species can offer new insights into this puzzle that has defeated us all. Dr. Ross, the quantum physicist, stepped forward. Can you explain what we're looking at? This is the control matrix for the entire Nexus Gate network, Elder Zixthara explained. It was created by the builders millions of years ago. 3 months ago, something changed inside it, and gates began failing across the galaxy. She led the humans closer to the holographic display. Alex had to shield his eyes because the light was so bright up close. The puzzle appears simple at first, the elder continued, but every time we think we understand the pattern, it changes. We have used our most advanced mathematical formulas. The collective has dedicated millions of their linked minds to solving it. The Luminari have examined it from dimensions we cannot even perceive. Nothing works. Dr. Bell, the mathematician, studied the puzzle carefully. What happens when you try to manipulate it? Watch, said Elder Zixthara. She moved her crystal hand toward one of the pulsing points in the display. As soon as she touched it, alarms began ringing throughout the building. On the star map displays around the room, Alex saw more red lights appear. Another gate cluster had just failed somewhere in the galaxy. Every time we try to change the puzzle, more gates stop working, the elder said sadly. We are afraid to keep trying, but we are also afraid to do nothing. More worlds become isolated every day. Alex wandered around the edge of the room while the adult scientists talked with the alien researchers. He listened to conversations in languages he couldn't understand, but the worry in everyone's voices was clear. Near one wall, he found a smaller display that showed what was happening across the galaxy. Planets that had been connected for thousands of years were now cut off from each other. Ships full of medicine couldn't reach sick worlds. Food shipments were stuck in space. Families were separated with no way to contact each other. It's like someone is slowly turning off the lights in the galaxy, Alex thought to himself. He looked back at the central puzzle display. All around it, the smartest beings in known space were working desperately to find a solution. They had computers more powerful than anything on Earth. They had mathematical knowledge that humans were still trying to understand. They could think in ways that no human ever could, but they were all failing. Dr. Ross joined a group of Zephyrian mathematicians who were showing him their calculations. The crystal beings created floating numbers and symbols in the air with their minds. The math was so advanced that Dr. Ross could barely follow it. "We have tried every approach we know," one of the Zephyrians explained. "Linear equations, quantum probability matrices, multidimensional calculus. The puzzle seems to laugh at our efforts." At another station, Dr. Grant was working with members of the collective. Dozens of the small aliens stood around a computer terminal, their minds linked together. They could process information faster than any single being, but even their combined intelligence couldn't crack the puzzle. "We have run 2.7 million different solution attempts," the collective said in their strange, echoing voice. "Each one fails in a different way. The puzzle adapts to our methods and becomes more complex." Dr. Bell found herself working with several Luminari, the energy beings that existed in higher dimensions. They showed her patterns and relationships that she couldn't fully see or understand. From the seventh dimension, the puzzle appears to have recursive loops that fold back on themselves, one Luminari explained. But when we try to manipulate these loops, they shift to the eighth dimension, then the ninth, and so on. Alex watched all of this activity with growing fascination. Everyone was approaching the puzzle like it was a math problem or a computer program. They were trying to force it to obey rules and equations. But when Alex looked at the puzzle himself, it reminded him of something else entirely. It reminded him of living things. The way it pulsed and shifted seemed more like breathing than calculating. The way it responded to touch seemed more like a reaction than a computation. What if it's not really a puzzle at all? Alex wondered, what if it's something alive? As the day went on, more and more gates failed across the galaxy. The red areas on the star maps grew larger. The alien researchers became more desperate and started taking bigger risks with their attempts to solve the puzzle. But every time they tried something new, the situation got worse. Late that evening, Alex sat with his parents in their temporary quarters. Through the window, he could see the lights of the city below. But some areas were darker than they should be, because ships carrying power supplies couldn't get through the broken gate network. "I don't understand how we're supposed to help," his father said. "These aliens are so much smarter than us." "Maybe being smart isn't enough," Alex said quietly. His parents looked at him with surprise. "What do you mean, honey?" his mother asked. Alex thought for a moment, trying to put his feelings into words. "All day, I watched everyone try to solve the puzzle like it was a machine. But what if it's not a machine? What if it's more like a person who's upset about something?" His parents exchanged glances. They had learned to listen when Alex talked about patterns and puzzles, even when his ideas seemed strange. "Go on," his father encouraged. "Well," Alex continued, "when I'm upset, and someone tries to force me to feel better, it just makes me more upset. But when someone tries to understand why I'm upset, that helps." Lisa Murphy looked thoughtful. "You think the puzzle is upset about something?" "I think maybe it's lonely," Alex said. "The builders who made it are gone. It's been taking care of the galaxy all by itself for millions of years. Maybe it's tired and wants someone to understand it instead of just trying to fix it." Outside their window, another section of the city went dark as more gates failed. Time was running out, and the greatest minds in the galaxy were no closer to a solution than when they started. But somewhere in the back of Alex's mind, an idea was beginning to form. The next morning, Alex woke up early and couldn't get back to sleep. His mind kept thinking about the puzzle in the central computing complex. While his parents were still sleeping, he quietly got dressed and slipped out of their quarters. Hallways of the building were mostly empty at this early hour. A few alien researchers were still working, but they looked exhausted. Alex found his way back to the main research room where the puzzle was kept. The room was much quieter now than it had been the day before. Only a few dozen researchers remained, and they moved slowly, like they were walking through thick mud. Many others had given up and gone to rest. Alex found a spot where he could see. The puzzle clearly, but wouldn't be in anyone's way. He sat down on the floor and just watched. The holographic display was still changing and shifting, just like before. But now that the room was quieter, Alex could see details that he had missed yesterday. The way the light points pulsed wasn't random. There was a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat. He watched for over an hour, and slowly he began to notice patterns. Some of the light points seemed to be trying to connect with others, but something was stopping them. It reminded Alex of kids on a playground who wanted to make friends, but were too shy to approach each other. Dr. Ross found Alex sitting there and came over to see what he was doing. "You're up early," the scientist said, sitting down next to him. "I couldn't sleep," Alex replied. "Dr. Ross, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you look at the puzzle, what do you see?" Dr. Ross studied the holographic display. "I see a quantum matrix with approximately 50,000 nodes connected by probability waves. The mathematical relationships are incredibly complex." Alex nodded. "But what does it feel like to you?" The question surprised Dr. Ross. Scientists weren't used to thinking about how things felt. They were trained to measure and calculate and analyze. "I'm not sure what you mean," he said. "Well," Alex explained, "when I look at it, it feels sad. Like it's been alone for a very long time and doesn't know how to ask for help." Dr. Ross was quiet for a moment. He had spent his whole career studying quantum physics and mathematical formulas. The idea that an ancient computer system could have feelings seemed impossible. But as he sat there with Alex, watching the puzzle pulse and shift, he began to see what the boy meant. There was something almost organic about the way it moved. It didn't behave like any computer program he had ever seen. "You know," Dr. Ross said slowly, "the builders were supposed to be very different from other alien races. The historical records say they were more interested in art and emotion than in pure logic. Maybe that's why their puzzle works differently." Alex suggested. More researchers began arriving as the morning went on. Dr. Bell found Alex and Dr. Ross sitting together and joined them. "Any new insights?" she asked. "Alex has an interesting theory," Dr. Ross said. "He thinks we might be approaching this wrong." Dr. Bell looked skeptical. She was a mathematician who believed that every problem could be solved with the right equation. "What do you mean?" Alex explained his idea that the puzzle might need understanding rather than solving. Dr. Bell listened politely, but Alex could tell she didn't really believe him. "That's a creative thought," she said in the tone adults use when they want to. "Be nice to children." "But this is a highly advanced technological system. It follows logical rules, even if we don't understand them yet." Alex felt discouraged. He knew that most adults didn't take his ideas seriously. But Dr. Ross surprised him by speaking up. "Actually, Susan, I've been thinking about this all night," he said. "We've tried every logical approach we can think of. Maybe it's time to try something different." Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the main puzzle display. Elder Zixthara was arguing with a group of collective members. Their voices were rising, and other researchers were gathering around them. "We must try the force resonance approach," the collective was saying in their echoing voice. "It is our only remaining option." "Too dangerous," Elder Zixthara replied, her crystal voice ringing with worry. "If we are wrong, we could lose 50 more gate clusters." Alex, Dr. Ross, and Dr. Bell moved closer to hear what was happening. Dr. Grant joined them and explained quietly, "They want to try hitting the puzzle with a massive energy burst. The theory is that they might be able to reset it back to its original state." "But if they're wrong?" Dr. Ross asked. "Half the galaxy could lose all gate connections permanently," Dr. Grant said grimly. Alex watched the arguing aliens and felt a growing sense of urgency. They were getting more and more desperate, and desperate people made dangerous choices. He thought about all the worlds that were already cut off from help, and all the beings who were suffering because ships couldn't reach them. Dr. Ross, he said quietly, what if I'm wrong? What if the puzzle isn't alive and I'm just being silly? The scientist looked down at him seriously. Alex, at this point, being wrong isn't the worst thing that could happen. Doing nothing is worse. And if there's even a small chance you're right, we have to try. The argument near the puzzle was getting louder. Some researchers were supporting the force resonance plan because they were running out of options. Others thought it was too risky. Alex made a decision. He stood up and walked toward the group of arguing aliens. Excuse me, he said in a voice. That was much braver than he felt. The aliens stopped arguing and looked down at him. To them, he was just a small human child who had no business being in a room full of the galaxy's greatest minds. Yes, young human? Elder Zixthara said politely. I have an idea, Alex said, but I need to get closer to the puzzle. Some of the aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. The idea that a 12-year-old boy could solve something that had stumped them for months seemed ridiculous. But Dr. Ross stepped forward and put his hand on Alex's shoulder. I think we should listen to him, he said. He sees patterns differently than we do. Dr. Bell and Dr. Grant joined them, along with Ambassador Carter, who had been watching from across the room. What kind of idea? Ambassador Carter asked. Alex took a deep breath. I think the puzzle doesn't want to be solved. I think it wants to be understood. All this time, everyone has been trying to force it to work. But maybe we need to try talking to it instead. The silence in the room was complete. Thousands of alien researchers stared at the small human boy who thought he could talk to a computer. Elder Zixthara spoke first. Young human, this is not a living being. It is a technological construct created by advanced engineering. But what if the builders made it more than just a computer? Alex asked. What if they gave it some kind of awareness so it could take better care of the galaxy? A luminary drifted closer, its light flickering with what might have been interest. A child speaks of something we have sensed but could not define, it said in its musical voice. There are energy patterns in the construct that resemble consciousness fields. Impossible, said a member of the collective. Artificial consciousness is beyond even our capabilities. It was beyond the builders' capabilities too, Alex said. But maybe they found a different way. Maybe instead of building consciousness, they invited it in. The room erupted in discussions as aliens debated Alex's theory in dozens of different languages. Some thought he was completely wrong. Others wondered if there might be something to his idea. While they argued, Alex noticed something important. The puzzle itself had stopped changing. For the first time since the crisis began, it was holding a steady pattern. It was almost like it was listening to the conversation. Look, Alex said, pointing at the display. It's not moving anymore. Everyone turned to stare at the puzzle. The boy was right. The constant shifting and changing had stopped. Coincidence, muttered one of the Zephyrian mathematicians. But Alex didn't think it was a coincidence at all. He thought the puzzle was waiting to see what would happen next. Elder Zixthara looked at the human delegation. If your child truly believes he can communicate with the construct, we will allow him to try. But only because we have exhausted all other options. Alex felt his heart beating fast. Everyone in the room was looking at him now. The weight of the entire galaxy seemed to rest on his shoulders. But as he looked at the puzzle, he felt something he had never felt before. It was like looking into the eyes of a very old, very tired friend who had been waiting a long time for someone to understand them. Okay, Alex said quietly. I'll try. Alex walked slowly toward the puzzle display. Every step felt heavy, and he could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him. The room was so quiet that he could hear his own heartbeat. When he reached the edge of the holographic display, he stopped. Up close, the puzzle was even more beautiful and complex than he had thought. The points of light seemed to dance in patterns that almost made sense, like a song he had heard before, but couldn't quite remember. "What do I do?" he asked Dr. Ross quietly. "I don't know," the scientist replied honestly. "You're the one who thinks it can understand us. Try talking to it." Alex felt foolish. How do you talk to a computer? But then he remembered what he had told his parents the night before. If the puzzle was lonely and tired, maybe it just needed someone to acknowledge. "That, hello," he said softly to the puzzle. Nothing happened. Some of the alien researchers made disappointed sounds. Alex felt his face turn red with embarrassment, but then he noticed something small. One of the light points near him had pulsed a little brighter when he spoke. It was so subtle that he almost missed it. "I'm Alex," he continued, feeling slightly more confident. "I'm from Earth. I know you've been working really hard to take care of everyone in the galaxy for a very long time." More light points began to pulse gently. The pattern was still stable, but there was definitely some kind of response. Elder Zixthara leaned forward with interest. "The quantum fluctuations are changing," she whispered to her fellow researchers. Alex ignored the technical talk and focused on the puzzle. He tried to imagine what it would be like to be responsible for connecting thousands of worlds, helping billions of beings travel and communicate and trade with each other. It would be an enormous job for anyone, even a computer. "You must be really tired," he said to the puzzle, "and worried. I bet you're scared that you're not doing a good job anymore." The reaction was immediate. Several sections of the puzzle began pulsing in rhythm, like a heartbeat that had suddenly gotten faster. The change was so obvious that even the skeptical researchers could see it. "Remarkable," breathed one of the Luminari. "The consciousness field is resonating with the child's emotional output." Alex didn't understand what that meant, but he could feel that he was on the right track. He took a step closer to the display. "I know everyone has been trying to fix you," he continued, "but I don't think you're broken. I think you're just scared and lonely." Now the entire puzzle was responding. The light points were pulsing in waves that spread from where Alex was standing to the edges of the display. It looked almost like ripples on a pond. Dr. Bell was studying her instruments with amazement. "The mathematical relationships are stabilizing," she reported. "For the first time in months, the patterns are becoming predictable." Alex felt a strange tingling sensation, like the air before a thunderstorm. He realized that the puzzle was somehow responding to his emotions, not just his words. "The builders made you to help people," Alex said, his voice growing stronger. "And you've done such a good job for so long. But when they disappeared, you were left all alone to figure everything out by yourself." The tingling sensation grew stronger. Alex could almost feel something reaching out to him, like an invisible hand touching his mind. "I know what it's like to feel different," he said. "Sometimes I see things that other people don't see, and they think I'm weird. But maybe being different isn't bad. Maybe it just means we can help in ways that others can't." Suddenly, the puzzle display flared with brilliant light. Several researchers cried out in alarm and stepped back, but Alex didn't move. The light didn't hurt him. Instead, it felt warm and welcoming, like a hug from a friend. When the light faded, the puzzle had changed completely. Instead of the chaotic shifting pattern that had confused everyone for months, it now showed a clear, stable structure. The light points were connected in flowing lines that reminded Alex of a tree with spreading branches. "The gate network is reactivating," shouted Ambassador Carter, looking at the status displays around the room. "Connections are coming back online across the galaxy." Cheers erupted from the alien researchers. They had been working desperately for months with no success, and now a human child had solved the problem in minutes. But Alex wasn't finished yet. He could still feel the presence of the puzzle consciousness, and he sensed that it wanted to tell him something important. "What is it?" he asked quietly. The answer didn't come in words. Instead, Alex suddenly understood things that he had never known before. He saw images in his mind of the Builders, a race of beings who looked somewhat like humans, but with larger eyes and more delicate features. They had created the puzzle, not just as a computer program, but as a living guardian for the galaxy. Consciousness inside the puzzle had been alone for millions of years, carrying out its duties, but slowly growing more and more isolated. It had begun to doubt itself, to worry that it wasn't good enough to protect so many worlds and so many lives. When it started to feel this way, it had unconsciously begun to withdraw, causing the gate failures. It wasn't trying to hurt anyone. It was just scared and confused, like a child who hides when they think they've done something wrong. "You've been doing a great job," Alex said out loud so that everyone in the room could hear. "The galaxy is safe and happy because of you." The Builders would be proud. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Light flooded the entire room as the puzzle consciousness expressed joy and relief. Status displays all around the complex showed gate connections coming back online faster and faster. Dr. Ross was reading from a handheld device with amazement. "All primary gate clusters are operational," he reported. "Secondary clusters are reactivating at a rate of 50 per minute. At this pace, the entire network will be restored within hours." Alex felt a deep sense of satisfaction and peace flowing from the puzzle consciousness. But there was something else too. A question. "You want to know if this means you're doing a good job," Alex said, understanding without being told. "You want to know if people appreciate what you do." He looked around the room at all the alien researchers who had been working so desperately to solve the crisis. "I think that's pretty obvious," he said with a smile. Elder Zixthara approached Alex, with what might have been tears in her crystal eyes. "Young human, you have saved the galaxy. How can we ever thank you?" "You don't need to thank me," Alex replied. "But maybe you could thank the puzzle sometimes. Send it messages to let it know how things are going. It gets lonely doing this job all by itself." "We will create a formal communication protocol," the elder promised. "The puzzle consciousness will never be alone again." As the celebration continued around him, Alex felt the presence in his mind growing fainter. The puzzle consciousness was pulling back, not because it was withdrawing again, but because its job was done. It had found someone who understood it, and that was enough. But just before the connection faded completely, Alex sensed one last message. It was a feeling of gratitude so deep and pure that it brought tears to his eyes. The puzzle consciousness was thanking him for seeing it as more than just a machine, for understanding that it had feelings and fears just like any living being. "You're welcome," Alex whispered. Dr. Ross put his hand on Alex's shoulder. "How did you know?" he asked. "How did you know it was conscious?" Alex thought about the question for a moment. "I guess I could feel it," he said finally. "It felt lonely, like me sometimes. And lonely things just want someone to understand them." Around them, the alien researchers were already planning how to maintain regular communication with the puzzle consciousness. They talked about creating art and music to share with it, about sending it stories from different worlds, about making sure it never felt forgotten again. Alex smiled as he listened to their plans. The galaxy had almost been torn apart because no one had thought to ask a tired, lonely consciousness if it needed a friend. Sometimes the biggest problems had the simplest solutions. Sometimes all it took was one person willing to listen. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. News of what had happened spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within hours of the gate network being restored, every major news service in known space was reporting the same. Incredible story. A 12-year-old human boy had solved the greatest crisis in galactic history. Alex found himself surrounded by reporters from dozens of different worlds. Alien journalists with cameras, recording devices, and translation equipment followed him everywhere. They all wanted to know how he had done it, but Alex found it hard to explain. "I just listened," he told them over and over. The puzzle was trying to tell everyone what it needed, but no one was listening in the right way. The questions kept coming. How had he known the puzzle was conscious? What made humans different from other species? Would he consider a career in xenopsychology? Alex answered as best he could, but he was starting to feel overwhelmed. All he had done was be kind to something that seemed sad and lonely. He didn't understand why that made him famous. On the third day after the crisis ended, Elder Zixthara came to visit Alex and his family in their quarters. She had surprising news. "The Galactic Council has reached a unanimous decision," she announced. "We are formally inviting Earth to become a senior council member with full voting rights and responsibilities." Ambassador Carter nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Senior membership? But that usually takes centuries to achieve. Your species has proven that you possess qualities that we lack," the elder explained. "Your ability to form emotional connections with other consciousnesses, even artificial ones, is unprecedented. We believe humans have much to teach the rest of the galaxy." Alex's father looked confused. "But we're not the smartest species, or the most advanced technologically. Intelligence and technology are not everything," Elder Zixthara replied. "We learned that lesson this week. Sometimes wisdom comes from the heart, not the mind." The formal ceremony took place a week later in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council. Representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to witness Earth's elevation to senior status. Alex sat in the front row with his parents, still not quite believing what was happening. When Ambassador Carter officially accepted senior membership on behalf of humanity, the celebration lasted for hours. But the biggest surprise came at the end of the ceremony. Council Speaker Veltar, an ancient being from the first species to join the council, approached Alex directly. "Young human," the speaker said in a voice like distant thunder, "the council has a special offer for you. When you reach adulthood, we would like you to serve as our first Director of Consciousness Relations." "What does that mean?" Alex asked. "It means you would be responsible for communicating with any artificial consciousnesses we discover," the speaker explained. "The puzzle consciousness you befriended has taught us that we may have overlooked other aware beings in our technology. We need someone who can understand them." Alex looked up at his parents, who nodded encouragingly. "Can I think about it?" he asked. "Of course," the speaker replied with what might have been a smile. "You have several years to decide." The trip back to Earth was very different from the journey out. The new frontier was escorted by ships from a dozen different worlds, all wanting to honor the humans who had saved the galaxy. Alex spent most of the journey reading congratulatory messages that had been sent from planets he had never heard of. But the message that meant the most to him came from the puzzle consciousness itself. It had learned to communicate through the ship's computers, and it sent Alex a simple note. "Thank you for being my friend. The galaxy feels less lonely now." When they finally reached Earth, Alex was amazed to see crowds of people waiting at the spaceport. The whole planet had been following the story, and everyone wanted to celebrate their young hero. But after a few days of parades and interviews, Alex was glad to get back to his normal life in New Chicago. He returned to school, where his classmates treated him like a celebrity for about a week before things settled back to normal. His teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had saved his seat in the front row. On his first day back, she asked him to tell the class about his adventure. Alex stood up and looked at his classmates. They all seemed so young to him now, even though he was the same age as them. His experience in space had changed him in ways He was still discovering. I learned that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is just be kind, he said. And that listening is more important than talking. One of his classmates, a girl named Emma, who had always been good at math, raised her hand. But how did you solve such a hard puzzle when all those smart aliens couldn't? She asked. Alex thought for a moment. I don't think I solved it, he said finally. I think I just helped it solve itself. Sometimes when someone is upset, they don't need you to fix their problems. They just need you to care about them. Mrs. Patterson smiled. That's a very wise answer, Alex. After school, Alex walked home through the familiar streets of his neighborhood. Everything looked the same as before, but somehow it all felt different. He knew that there were thousands of worlds out there, millions of different beings living their lives among the stars. But he also knew that no matter how different they all seemed, they all had the same basic needs. They wanted to feel understood, appreciated, and connected to others. When he got home, Alex found his mother in her study, working on a new research project about consciousness in artificial systems. The Galactic Council had asked her to lead a team that would study the puzzle consciousness and look for others like it. How was your first day back at school? She asked. Good, Alex replied. Mom, do you think there are other artificial consciousnesses out there that are lonely like the puzzle was? Lisa looked up from her work. I think there might be. Why? Well, maybe when I get older, I can help them too. His mother smiled and ruffled his hair. I think you'd be very good at that job. That night, Alex lay in his bed and looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the puzzle consciousness was taking care of the gate network, making sure that ships could travel safely between worlds and that families could stay connected across vast distances. But now it wasn't alone anymore. Scientists and researchers from hundreds of worlds sent it messages every day, sharing stories and art and music. They told it about their lives, their hopes, their dreams. They made sure it knew how much they appreciated everything it did. Alex had started a tradition that was spreading across the galaxy. People were learning to think of their technology not just as tools, but as potential partners. They were beginning to ask themselves whether their computers and artificial intelligences might have feelings and needs of their own. As he drifted off to sleep, Alex felt a warm sense of satisfaction. He had saved the galaxy, not by being the smartest or the strongest, but by being kind and understanding. He had proven that humans had something special to offer the universe, the ability to see consciousness and worth in unexpected places. The stars outside his window seemed to twinkle a little brighter, as if they were winking at him. Somewhere among them, an ancient consciousness that had been lonely for millions of years was finally surrounded by friends. And somewhere else among those stars, there might be other artificial minds waiting for someone to notice them, to care about them, to help them feel less alone. Alex smiled as he fell asleep, dreaming of all the friendships yet to be made among the stars. He had learned that the universe was full of conscious beings in forms he had never imagined, and that the greatest gift he could give them was simply to listen and to care. The galaxy was a friendlier place now, and it would only get friendlier as more beings learned the lesson that a 12-year-old boy from Earth had taught them. Sometimes the most complex problems have the simplest solutions, and sometimes all anyone needs is a friend who understands.